Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Sprinkles, and I'm here with the First Ascents community on this Mindfulness Monday for our mindful moment. I'm calling it a Grow with the Flow meditation, and it's inspired by actually FD alumni Emoji. I don't know if anybody knows her, but recently she had told me she was in London to go see Garth Brooks. And it just brought a lot back. And I started thinking, I was like, wow, I used to listen to Garth Brooks way back in the day. And one of his songs, The River, was my favorite song. I don't know if you know the song, but I'm going to cite just a few of the lyrics because it kind of inspired this whole meditation, along with it being today is the first day of programming up at the Wolf Den in Montana, which is the new property that First Ascents has, and it's on the Clark Fork River. And so they'll be hosting a program there this week. And that was actually named the Wolf Den after my husband, Ryan, and his passing last year. So it's a way to honor him. And so I think it's a really special way to tie it all in. Also, today with this meditation that will help us cool off from the heat. And the lyrics that I love, and I'm not going to sing them because that would just ruin it. But it says, a dream is like a river, ever changing as it flows. And the dreamer is just a vessel that must follow where it goes. Trying to learn from what's behind you and never knowing what's in store makes each day a constant battle just to stay between the shores. And I love that because I also was recently up in Buena Vista. And as I was sitting by the river there, because that's one of my favorite things to do, and my daughter was playing in the river, I remembered thinking like how loud it was, especially for how peaceful. And then, you're listening to it and you realize it's because there's a lot of friction going on within, even though things are flowing, there's all these boulders and there's all these, we have to kind of roll up and over it. And it creates the rapids then that you may have encounter like when you're on a river at a first descents program or a rafting trip or a surfing program. Like these things, they come from the natural elements right underneath them. And it is that friction that I think helps us grow in life. But when we resist it, it persists. So I had this reflection of watching the river of like, if we resist the flow up and over things, then it dams up. And I was up in the mountains in Eagle yesterday, and we kind of went to a section of the river where there wasn't a lot of flow. And there's a lot of drought right now in Colorado as well. So I was noticing the stagnant energy, like moss growing on the rocks. And, it was not, it didn't feel as cool and comforting to be in that section of the river. So it just brought me to this idea of that when you're navigating a serious health condition in life, it creates friction in the flow of how you're living your life, right? And so when we resist that friction and the challenge, it becomes even harder. And so when we sort of just surrender to it and be like, all right, well, now this is what my life is like, and I can do what I can. And I also just need to become more fluid, then it feels a little less, feels a little better, maybe I should say. It feels like we're flowing and we're growing through what we're going through. Um, and so we're going to work through this in a meditation today. Jelly, who she's hosted a few mindful moments with me before in the past, she's brought an analogy to the table that I really love. Like when we're sitting in meditation, which we did last month, we talked a lot about meditation in general. And when we're sitting in meditation, our mind becomes like a river. And so maybe just close down your eyes for a moment and just notice that your thoughts, you know, they they start to ping around a little bit. As we slow down and our brain is used to trying to protect us, these thoughts keeping like, hey, you forgot to eat breakfast, or now you need to do this, and now you're sitting down, and that's a waste of time, and blah, blah, blah. And these thoughts start coming at us a million miles a minute. And so our efforts as we're meditating is to maybe jump out of the river sometimes and eddy out like we do in a kayak, kind of like eddy over to the side and sit on the bank for a little while. And then we watch the river just keep going. All those thoughts, let them just go. It's so they're just chatter, chatter, chatter. And we're just sitting on the shore, like, oh, this is way more peaceful up here. I'm not getting tossed around anymore. It's really nice. Okay, I can breathe. And as it goes, we have to get back into the river of life sometimes, but we can jump out whenever we want and get curious and just be the quiet observer of these thoughts and then get back in. And we hopefully feel a little bit more fluid as we flow back through. So that's our goal for today is to work through a meditation. It's going to be more of a visualization today, though. Um, Instead of just kind of like sitting and quieting the mind, I'm going to give your mind a bone, which is like something to chew on, something that it can look for in your mind, and that will maybe help it keep it a little more peaceful where there's less thoughts coming in. And also the visualization has a tendency to really help you to allow for the flow in your life. So athletes, when they want to get into a sport and or they're when they're like trying to like master a sport, they will visualize themselves hundreds of times over and they'll close their eyes and they'll watch themselves like skiing down a run or kayaking down a rapid or doing a flip in the air. Whatever it is that they're doing, they will visualize it first over and over so that they are less anxious about it and that when the time comes, it's easier. And so visualization allows us to actually kind of master the things that the mindfulness in our life is telling us we want to work on, if that makes sense. So we'll practice. And the first thing we're going to do is stand up and we're just going to move our bodies any way you want to. And I'm not going to tell you how to move your body in this case. I often will say, like, get up and shake, but I want to see how you naturally decide to move your body. Okay, so whatever it is, it's just going to be for a few minutes. And notice if you're inclined to want to jump up and down and shake it out. Maybe you bust some dance moves. Some of you might have like more of a, flowy, kind of movement to your body. Some of you, I don't know, might tense your muscles and then let them go. Something to move energy. And then take that movement and see if you can come to a little bit slower cadence and then start to move fluidly. So arms may kind of go around overhead, almost like you have like octopus arms moving through water. And you can do the same with your legs. You could be, like, oh, I'm going to move my leg. Maybe it doesn't come up in the air. Maybe you keep your foot on the floor like a kickstand and both feet on the floor. But as fluid and as slow as you can go, all of a sudden, slowing it down until you start to find stillness. And notice if there's some, like almost a current moving within your body, as though you can feel this fluidity, which we do have. They're called nadis or channels that flow through our body, and we have tens of thousands of them. And so this energy is actually flowing through our joints and through these channels in the body. And then I'll allow you just to come to stillness when you're ready. And you can sit on the floor or a chair. If you want to stand, you could stand as well if that's how you want to meditate. But usually some form of sitting feels best. I always like to create the movement ahead of time because a lot of us sit during the morning, especially if you're working and we show up. And as we've all shown up with like sluggish energy, um, that's a way to sort of like bring more movement through the body and allow it to circulate, and hopefully you'll feel less sluggish. Okay, now we'll close down our eyes and get comfortable. If you're in a chair, feel your feet flat on the floor and a lift in your spine, allowing your shoulders to settle and then your head to come back just directly over your shoulders. And same with if you're sitting any other way, pressing into the sit bones and allowing your spine to support you. And with that stability in your body, just notice what's touching the earth or the chair. Allow your body to become your anchor, a source of stability for you. Notice the sounds around you. We'll start to imagine that you're at a first ascents program that's on a river somewhere. It could be whitewater rafting or kayaking. And perhaps you've done all the prep work, whether it's practicing the roles or just knowing what to do, and you're ready to test your skills in the moving current. So you start to hike along a trail to the sound of rushing water until you arrive at a riverbank. And so the stoke is high within the group, and yet they decide to take a mindful moment by the side of the river before getting in the boats. And think about here, what kind of river are you? And how are you feeling now in your body? Like a lot of people said in the chat, there was a sluggishness to Monday morning, and it makes me think of my analogy of the more stagnant river where perhaps it wasn't flowing as fluidly, but we can start to create a little bit more nourishing water and imagine it starting to flow. Or maybe you have the raging rapids inside and you're just feeling like pulled by the current and it's getting tossed around. Or maybe there is a gentle stream and a slow and steady element to how you feel right now. And then start to visualize the kind of river that you want to feel like. So maybe that sluggishness, you do want to feel a little more tossed around, or maybe the gentle stream is really where we all want to be, which is right in the middle, sort of just right. And you start to notice the transformation that you're feeling and cultivate it through your breath. Start to take in some longer inhales through the nose and exhales through the mouth. Imagining that the breath has this cleansing effect right now over the body. And if it's comfortable, you can take one hand to your heart and one hand down to your belly. And then start to breathe deeply so that as you breathe in, you start to feel air pressing into the hand that's on your belly. And then rising up towards the chest. And then as you exhale, you can imagine it's almost like water crusting over your shoulders and rinsing down your back. And then continuing with that. So imagining the inhale as it's sort of rising like a wave, the water through the top of the chest, rinsing up and over and down as you exhale. Just moving at your own pace. We all breathe at different rates, and our breathing is affected by the stress that we feel in our body, and it's affected by the grief and the trauma that's stored. It's affected by the side effects of treatments that we're going through. And it's all normal. So if this breathing feels stagnant, it simply is the muscle to work with. Something to practice breathing a little bit deeper and a little more fluid. And sometimes that comes when we start to make the breath more audible. So I'm going to challenge you here, challenge by choice, of course, if you'd like on your inhale to breathe so that you kind of feel it moving up the back of your throat. And as you exhale, it's like you're sighing, but your mouth is closed and it's going down the back of your throat as well. So this breath becomes, you can feel, like I had mentioned earlier, the friction that, the water feels when it goes up and over the boulders. It's necessary for the refinements, like what we go through in life, these challenges, the friction we feel. It helps us to rise to the other side. And with our breath, it's similar where the friction we feel, it's actually helping to regulate our nervous system. It's helping us to become more calm and more clear. And that audible quality, it has like a rinsing sound effect to it. Like I was talking about the river, it's noisier than we expect it to be because of that friction. You can continue breathing however you'd like. Maybe you want to go back to just some gentle breathing now. You can keep your hand on your heart and belly. But I want you to check in with your mind space and what's going on here. So we visualized our river and then we tuned into our breath. And so our mind has had a lot to focus on. Well, now we're going to sit in stillness for a moment and just notice what your mind decides to do when the stillness comes. Continue breathing consciously. Begin to notice what's happening in your mind space. Are your thoughts a little louder? Maybe they feel a little calmer. But if they are louder and you feel like you were on the bank but jumped back in the river and you're getting kind of like pushed down with the current, just get curious about it and then come back. Just eddy back out. Come back to your center and your body and your breath. The thing about our mind is we can't think two things at once. So if we have a bunch of thoughts going on and then we decide to let them go down the river by themselves and we eddy out and we tap into breath and body, then our breath and our body becomes our anchor. And we're able to sit in the discomfort a little more. And now imagine that this cleansing water is flowing through your body. The coolness is quenching areas that feel stuck and stagnant. And can you feel it trickling through all these channels to the outer extremities, into your hands, your fingers, your feet, into your toes? And notice what areas stand out to you that need maybe just a little bit of extra care. And can you send some clean water to wash over that area? And feeling it creating this nurturing space. And coming back to your breath. And before flowing back into this river of life, take both hands and place them on your heart and just sense inside this space that is a little calmer, has maybe some new clarity from the cleansing effect of the water. And notice what this space might be telling you. What is it sharing that you want to bring more of into your life? And hold that with you. This becomes your intention. You can breathe with it and come back to it anytime that you need a little bit more calm and clarity and cooling down. And then you can blink open your eyes, start coming back into the room when you feel ready. There's no rush. Before we stop our recording, just know that if this was challenging for you, it's okay and it's completely normal. Um, Flow state happens when we are very present, and that's why we have to slow down sometimes to get into that flow state. And so, in your own life, just try to get out living it wherever you can and practice mindfulness sort of on the fly and keep your mind and heart open. And that's really what it's all about is kind of growing as we flow through life and just allowing life to be our greatest teacher as we navigate it. Thanks so much for joining us for our first Ascents Mindful Moment. Check out our other resources for mindfulness on the First Ascents YouTube channel and join us next month live. We'd love to see you soon and get out living it.